Good afternoon, everyone. And on behalf of the Housing Chair, I would like to welcome you to our housing workshop. I would like to introduce our panel for today. We have Congressman Andy Kim, also Assemblywoman Brittany Timberlake. We have Peggy Bailey, from Senior Advisor on Rental Assistance for HUD. We also have Christopher Golden from HUD. We have Janelle Winter from Director of Division of Housing for DCA. We have Sharon Barker from the Housing Community Development Network of New Jersey. And we also have Jose Ortiz, Deputy Director of Essence Newark Legal Services.
I want to thank everybody for giving me that opportunity to have phase one to speak. You know, normally things that I normally don't speak out, but I'm quite sure that everybody understood that, you know, our mission should be to put as many people in housing, whether it's for rentals, whether it's for sales or whatever. But it's all about land at the end of the day. But we're going to come back to that later. But I do want to say that there's going to be a phase three part of this. And the phase three part of this is going to be with the developers. And that's underway now. I've been contacted with some of the developers. We've been talking. They're willing to come on. This is where you can ask your questions. You know, whatever you may have, the developers are the ones that you need to also ask these things to besides your township. So I just want to let you know that that's going to be phase three of this. With that, I believe Lori is out there, and I'm going to turn it back over to Cara because she has it set up on who's going to speak and when.
Yes, our first panelist will give a brief discussion will be Congressman Andy Kim.
Thanks for having me as part of this discussion. And I know we'll be getting into a lot of questions and having an opportunity to talk across the board. But from my end, I just want to talk about, you know, how important it has been for us to be able to address these issues when it comes to housing, when it comes to the challenges that so many are facing right now through this pandemic and through this, you know, difficult time. You know, we've been doing a lot to try to mobilize in Congress to be able to rise up to this moment. And I know there's still a lot of challenges out there, and I know that some of this money is not getting out there fast enough and out to the places that we want it to be at. But, you know, we are certainly trying to recognize, you know, just what's at stake. So from our end, you know, we've put forward over $46 billion in emergency rental assistance programs and other in the American Rescue Plan. And right now, a lot of what we're trying to address when it comes to infrastructure, as well as the Buildback Better, is focused on these challenges both now as well as anticipating continued challenges into the future when it comes to affordable housing and the challenges. So that is something that certainly the Biden administration, as well as a lot of leaders in Congress, myself included, have been advocating for. But this is an opportunity for me to hear from you as well, and hear from experts as well as, you know, people who have been affected by this, to try to understand, you know, what else we need to do, what we can do to try to connect these dots better and be able to address these issues.
I would now like to introduce Assemblywoman Brittany Timberlake. I just want to thank her. She was the first person we asked her to be a part of this panel, and she said yes, like 40 hours. I was so happy for Assemblywoman.
Hello, New Jersey State NAACP. Hello to Congressman Kim and everyone out there. It really is an honor to be a part of this. And anytime the NAACP asks me if I can certainly make it, I always do, because the work and the history that the NAACP stands for is incredibly important, and it's incredibly important to preserve the history and continue to make new history too, as we fight for legislation that we need in order to create not just equality, which was what our ancestors, you know, when you think of Dr. King and many shoulders that we stand on, spoke often about, but also equity, making the playing field level for all people. And we know that historically, whenever Black peoples in particular have fought and won rights, that it has opened up rights for all people who have been marginalized and disadvantaged. So thank you so much, Michael. It's an honor to be here with you. At the state of New Jersey, you know, it's no secret that all throughout COVID-19, one of my main priority areas of focus was housing. And it was to make sure that New Jersey's already existing housing crisis did not exacerbate even more because of this pandemic, which is almost like an act of God, right? Outside of everyone's control, no one brought it, nobody could control it. And people were deemed to be non-essential in their jobs, and we had to shut, you know, the state down, and through Governor Murphy, in which I certainly supported the decision, because the most important thing was to save lives and to flatten the curve, and we did that together in New Jersey. But with that, there has been a lot of economic justice challenges that were brought to the surface. You had an unemployment system that was suddenly incredibly overwhelmed, never was built to be able to service that amount of people, and it has improved in time, but it still needs some improvement. You have people who were waiting for their checks. Meanwhile, we're also had their landlords or their mortgage lenders knocking on their door saying, hey, you know, what's going on? When can I expect payment? What we did through the pandemic, well, one, there was the moratorium of rent, and we encourage renters to pay what you can. If you were a renter who was just, you know, sitting on your hands and said, I'm going to take advantage of this, although I have the money, I'm not going to do it, shame on you. But if you were a landlord who was saying, well, I know that I have a renter who is struggling because of COVID-19, but I am still going to do an illegal lockout, shame on you too. Everybody in the housing ecosystem has to work together, homeowners, landlords, and renters, in order for it to work. New Jersey is the #1 state that leads in foreclosures nationwide. Leading New Jersey in foreclosures, and I'm swinging in and out of rental, landlord, and homeownership issues, but leading New Jersey, making New Jersey #1 in the country, are our urban areas. That is a lot of Black and brown wealth that is literally hemorrhaging out of our communities. So the crisis is already here. We already have an issue with homelessness. There not being enough affordable housing. I saw my good friend Sharon Barker on the line, who is an absolute rock star and a partner in all things housing and more. So they could tell you also about the issue of the lack of affordable housing that they've been fighting for many years. That's my little baby in the background. He's 8 months old. So I know they said somebody mute their line. It might just be my line. You know, with COVID-19, what we did was, in addition to the moratorium on evictions and foreclosures, we worked incredibly hard alongside with NAACP too, of course, to get a bill passed. So now there's $500 million available for rental/landlord assistance. I would ask anyone that wants to know how this money can be accessed to please visit the Department of Community Affairs website, the DCA website, led by Lieutenant Governor Sheila Oliver, of course. And, you know, please go to the website, keep updated on all of the information that's coming out so that you can access the information, put the applications in. It is being done as a lottery system. I am pushing for it to be a more frequent lottery. You can, of course, go to the Housing and Community Development of New Jersey website too, to learn about what is available for housing relief as well. As a part of that bill, there was also $200 million for energy relief. So anyone who owes their energy service provider, Elizabethtown and Gas, PSE&G, whoever it may be, I know we have a few in the state of New Jersey, depending on your geography. And it's important, you know, to have provided that relief as well too. I'll close with my opening remarks by saying this. You know, when you think about what your house means, and it's the reason why I've dedicated practically my entire career to pushing forward housing and equity and economic justice. When you think about what a house is, we saw that through the pandemic, it was a hospital. We saw that it was a schoolhouse. Okay, we know that it is a place of refuge. It is a place of peace, and that it is a place where family can gather. And the thought that anyone would have to experience the loss of such a thing, where housing should be a natural right, is incredibly daunting. And if it weren't for excellent partners throughout the state of New Jersey, grassroots organizations, tenant organizers, lawyers who volunteered their time, we wouldn't have been able to get done the legislation that we did in order to protect the aftermath after the eviction and the mortgage moratorium were lifted, to try and prevent as many people as possible from actually being evicted. And while also making sure that landlords do receive their money over time. We are still looking to do a component for home ownership. We think that in all matters, there should be no impact to credit during this, the covered period, which is the period during the pandemic. No one's credit should be impacted due to this. And unfortunately, while we have protected renters through our legislation, where they cannot have an impact to credit for their inability to have paid during COVID-19, I am hearing from the homeowners, which we have tried to muscle through the Trenton politics and protect too, because there are some people who have actually applied for mortgage forbearances who are now getting hit on their credit report. And we're looking to do something in lame duck to help prevent and even reverse that. But thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Brittany. And also want to say to you that you are a real trooper. A lot of folks, I don't know if they caught it or not, but doing a lot of this, you were going through your pregnancy, and you were out there. I was just totally impressed, and I'm happy for you. You know, God bless you and your family. You know, you're a real trooper. And so we need you doing some of that good work.
Hey, listen, man, it's all for the people. I don't work for big corporations. I work for you all. And I appreciate everybody for your support, because I know most of the people on this line now are preaching to the choir because you were in the fight right there with us.
Yeah, but thank you again. Back to you, Kyra.
Thank you so much. Our next panelist is Peggy Bailey, Senior Advisor on Rental Assistance from HUD.
Thank you for having me here today. And I especially want to thank the Housing Committee for having this session at the convention. Secretary Fudge is sorry that she couldn't be with you today, and sends her appreciation for all of the great work that you and the entire NAACP do each and every day to push policymakers to invest in communities of color and reverse the negative impacts of racism and discrimination. Secretary Fudge consistently explains to our stakeholders that it is a new day at HUD. And that isn't just a refrain in her speech. It is the charge that she gives all of us every day to live out in the decisions that we make. And really what that means is that we're centering people here at HUD now. We know that it's the people that receive HUD services and supports that we're here to make sure that we're doing right by them. And to do this right requires a recognition that the past and present housing policies and practices at all levels of government have unfortunately been central to creating the racial wealth gap. And because closing the racial wealth gap is a priority for President Biden, this recognition means we are identifying the actions we can take to correct these mistakes. So first and foremost in all of our minds right now at HUD is that it takes money to make these things happen. And while there's been a lot of money, as was already talked about, sent out to communities for the to overcome the pandemic, we also have the President's Buildback Better agenda, which is starting to move through Congress now and would create a historic investment in housing and community development. The Build Back Better agenda prioritizes public housing to address the huge capital needs background. We know that 70% of people living in public housing are people of color. And since the 50s, when white people began moving out of public housing, our investment in public housing has declined. And too many public housing developments are making people sick rather than being the strong, stable foundation for their families that housing should be. So the President's plan would correct this and rejuvenate public housing. The Build Back Better agenda also includes resources for HUD that, when coupled with programs like the low-income housing tax credit, make sure that rental housing in particular is affordable for people with the lowest incomes who are disproportionately people of color. And without HUD's grant programs, housing can be built for middle-income Americans, but those with the lowest incomes, many who are people, seniors and people with disabilities, get left behind. Our agenda also, as was previously mentioned, helps homeowners and includes proposals to help people with down payment assistance if they're a first-time homeowner, particularly those families without family wealth, to help with that initial down payment. You know, a lot of times down payment assistance is a tax credit that people receive after the fact, but it's really, you know, at closing when you need to be able to bring the down payment assistance. And so we're looking at how to design programs that help people have that money up front and not have to wait for it later in their tax returns. We're also supporting funding for tribal nations and the extreme housing need in Indian country. And what's really exciting about the Build Back Better agenda is the investment directly to communities and community-led organizations, and trying to help make sure that we're empowering the people that live in the community to help drive the change in them communities. You know, in addition to all of these things that would happen if the Build Back Better proposal passes, Secretary Fudge is also committed to fair housing. You know, fair housing is the law of the land, and we're committed here at HUD to enforce fair housing and make sure that communities are affirmatively furthering fair housing to give people housing choice. We've enacted policies to help Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac implement better practices when it comes to fair lending. We just earlier this year created new policies so that student loan debt isn't a negative in helping people apply for federally backed mortgages. And we're always trying to do everything we can to make sure that more renters have rental assistance, and that services surrounding that don't continue the paternalistic policies that we've had of the past, but understand that all families have strengths, and our program should be working to make sure that people can afford a place to live, but also start to build savings and grow that savings so that they can also build family wealth and make choices like paying for college and maybe becoming a homeowner. Overall, the Secretary has charged us to listen and act, listening to people we serve and have their needs drive all of our policy positions. And once we know the direction we need to go, we need to act. She is not a secretary who just sits around. If you saw yesterday, she was in New Orleans, and she's been all around the country, even during the pandemic, making sure that people know that HUD is here for them. We have the opportunity to transform housing policy and practices for generations to come, so we can't lose this moment. So I want to thank you again for giving me this time today. Thank you on behalf of the Secretary, and thank you all for all the work that you do every day, truly doing God's work in the community. Thanks.
You said something that, you know, really, really excites me. And when you're talking about, you know, you're saying HUD's got, you know, this money out that's going to help people, you know, first-time home buyers and all of that stuff. I appreciate that. The one thing that this is what I want you to think about. All of HUD's housing authorities do not have a housing plan, first-time home buyers. You don't have to answer that now, but I just want you to think about that. Is that fair? Because John Doe that lives in Freehold, his housing authority has it, but somebody that lives in Asbury Park, they don't get the same opportunity to purchase housing. So you can answer that question later, but I definitely wanted you to think about that. Back to you, Ms. Price.
The Director of Division of Housing for the Department of Community Affairs. Thank you, Ms. Winters.
Thank you, and good afternoon, everyone. At the Division of Housing at DCA, under the Lieutenant Governor Oliver's leadership, we are tasked with implementing a lot of the housing-related COVID-19 responses. So one of the things that we are most involved with is the distribution of rental assistance and arrears payments through our CVRAP2 program. And I'm pleased to say that in terms of distributing the federal aid that's come down through that program, New Jersey's statewide program is third in the nation in getting those funds out quickly. And we've gotten, since including our CARES money, we've gotten more than $370 million out to more than 44,000 households in this emergency COVID relief since the pandemic started. And we're very proud of that. We're also proud that just as important as distributing this money quickly is distributing it equitably. And a recent analysis of all the funds we've put out to date has shown that those funds are getting exactly where they need to go, to low-income communities, to those communities most impacted both economically and in terms of cases of COVID, impacted by COVID, and communities of color. So we are working very hard to make sure those funds go out equitably and efficiently. And I think it was mentioned earlier that at our website, nj.gov/DCA, is where people can apply for this assistance. And with one application, you not only apply for the federal money for arrears, but also there was recently a bill passed that established an eviction prevention program, which gives us another $500 million, not just for rental arrears, but also for future rent payments for up to 24 months. And that's going to be able to help a lot of households. And we do that with just one application. And the good news about getting these funds out as well is that we are not only permitted, but encouraged to take a lot of self-certification. So rather than having people try and find their pay stubs and various pieces of information and uploading them to us and doing all of that, people can just tell us how they were impacted by COVID. They can tell us about their income and how they might have lost income. If you used to drive Uber a lot and you couldn't during the pandemic, you're not going to have a letter from Uber telling you that. So we shouldn't ask for that. So that's one of the ways that we are really looking to try and get these funds out as quickly as possible to the people who are most in need. We do select through a lottery, and at this point, we're actually drawing a lottery every day. So we have a lot of people coming into the program and a lot of people looking to participate as well. In order to make sure as many people as possible hear about it, we have just put out an RFP, and we're going to be awarding it very soon, for nonprofits for $5 million to do outreach. And by that, we mean actually going out into communities, going out into community centers with a tablet and a Wi-Fi, hotspot, and signing people up for the assistance right there. Not just giving out, flyers, hoping people can do it at home, but really getting them on board. We want to be able to say that everybody in the state who needed this had a chance to apply. And so that's going to really help us, we think, do that. And for people who aren't as comfortable with the internet or might not have access, we have a call center that will take applications over the phone. And that call center is open 7 days a week from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. So that way people who might work a non-traditional, who might not be able to, call during a traditional workday of Monday through Friday can get in touch with us as well. And they can submit that right over the phone. The other thing that we are very involved with implementing is the eviction protections that the Assemblywoman spoke about, which are really important. Those provide a lot of protection to people from eviction for those who are middle income or below. It provides a protection from ever being evicted for arrears that accrued during the covered period of the pandemic, which is March 2020 to March 2020 to August 31st, 2021. You still have to pay that money. It becomes civil debt though, so you can't be forced to leave. And for those who are lower income, 80% AMI or below, if in addition to that, they also certify that they were impacted by COVID in some way, and economically too, high expenses, lowered income, whatever that is. And then also, in addition to that, that they've applied for rental assistance, they can get protection through the end of this calendar year. So they cannot be asked to leave their homes or forced to leave their homes through the end of this calendar year. And any rent that accrues during that period, that all becomes civil debt. They can never be evicted for that even next year through the end of this calendar year. So these are really huge protections. But the important thing is in order to get them, you have to self-certify that those things are true. And the way to do that is we have a website at DCA, again, nj.gov/DCA, where you can go and you answer a few questions. It walks you right through. It figures out if your income qualifies you. If you haven't done rental assistance yet, there's a link to apply for it right there. And then it will generate that self-certification letter for you. You print out a copy, you keep it, you give a copy to your landlord. If you already have an eviction filing, give us your docket number and we'll send it over to the courts automatically so that your case can be, dropped. And once you do that, we also are working with the courts. We're exchanging data every 2 weeks to make sure that we see who might have a filing that's come up, but we have a self-certification for them, so we can do that. We can do that right there. And if you don't have the internet, call the call center and we can do the self-certification right over the phone, and then we mail you your self-certification letter out. So we can get that to you. But the really important thing that everybody needs to know is none of these protections help if people don't self-certify. So we really encourage everybody, you don't have to have an eviction filing. In fact, do it before there's one. But get it in there. It's really easy to do. It takes less than 5 minutes. And then people can breathe easy because they have a lot of protection from eviction there. And that's what we want. We want people to feel, safe and in their homes and know that they'll be able to stay there. And then the last thing I just wanted to say is we are also very involved in developing affordable housing. The governor and the lieutenant governor, certainly were pleased to lead the charge to make sure that our affordable housing trust fund is well funded. And so we have funds there. We also have these federal funds that we just heard about from Peggy at HUD. And we have rolling applications for those. Again, through our website, we can fund affordable rental and affordable home ownership projects. And we are looking at projects every day. We work closely with people to bring those projects through across the finish line. So if you have groups that are interested in developing housing, now is the time. And it's the time not only because these resources are here, but because we really need it. So thank you so much. And hope that we see you all coming into one or the other of our programs as you need them.
You will. Janelle, this is me, Mike McNeil.
Mike.
How you doing? Good?
Mm-hmm.
Listen, I heard you. The NAACP housing, we're very interested in taking a look at the outreach part of that. I don't think that there's too many organizations that are set up as well as the NAACP is to do the outreach because of the connections that it has, not only with the branches throughout New Jersey NAACP, but the other partners that we all are connected to. And one of the other things that, we may want to take a look at, I know I had talked to some folks in DCA before about this, is having an outreach. Well, actually, they did let us do it, that our offices would be an outreach where people can actually come in if they needed help filling out the applications and all of that type of stuff. So we would like to take a look at that proposal that's out there. I'll get some of our folks to look at it, and we're going to, NAAC will partner with a nonprofit, which will probably be STEPS, and I think that we can do that.
Great. Well, we certainly always look forward to working with the NAACP and STEPS. So yeah. We'll have to get together soon.
Well, good. Back to you, Cara.
Our next guest is Sharon Barker, and she is from the Housing Community Development Network of New Jersey. She's the Vice President and COO. Thank you, Sharon.
I'm happy to be here, and thank you, Kyra. Thank you, Mike. So before I start, I just have to tap into a few things that were already said. One, we are so pleased to be partnering with DCA on so many of the things that we're doing. They've been a wonderful partner through this process, and we can't speak highly enough on behalf of our members for the partnership that we have had through this pandemic with Janelle and her staff and with the Lieutenant Governor. So know that we're very lucky that we have her in the position she's in, and she's making sure that things move as quickly and as easily as possible to get money out and assistance out to the people who need it. And we have had a champion from day one with Assemblywoman Timberlake. And she, I don't know if everybody even knows this, but she really worked tirelessly to make sure that the regulations got through and the legislation got through that protected homeowners, tenants, and as Mike said before, as she was carrying her child and gave birth, she didn't miss a beat. She was back on a conference call with us, I think, within 48 hours after her giving birth. So she really cares about this and has worked very closely with us. So if you're not familiar with the Housing and Community Development Network, we are the statewide organization that supports community development organizations. And we have housing counselors, developers, supporters, childcare providers, pantries, all kinds of services that are provided by our members. We've got nearly 270 members statewide. What we've been doing a lot through this process is working with other nonprofits throughout the state to make sure that we get the information out. So all of our members are sharing the information and letting people know where to go for the links with DCA or where to get information from the federal government. And the more information you have, the better. And that's the most important thing we can do right now, is to get information out to you. But Mike specifically asked me to be on today because he and Kyra just went through a program that we ran through the network, which we started as Housing Help NJ. And we started a website, and you can go there anytime, and it's housinghelpnj.com or .org. There's also a toll-free number, and you can get information on what the current news is. You can get information on the current links that you should be using to tap into DCA and get information, or utility assistance, or legal services. It's all on there, and it's written for the public. So it's a little different in nonprofits. Usually we'll write our websites for other nonprofits or legislators to use, but this is really for the public. So it's in English and Spanish. All the information is in both. And we can also translate to any of the other languages. We do have a system for that as well. And this was paid for by the Affordable Housing Trust Fund and through the New Jersey Pandemic Relief Fund. We received a grant from them as well. So we've developed this program so that the public can go there and look up information, especially for those who may not feel comfortable contacting the government directly with a question. This is a place they can go to ask a question. They can write in the question online, or they can call the hotline and someone can answer them, and they can get information right there. And a lot of times we're finding that there's someone, maybe because of an immigration issue or because they had a previous conviction and had maybe served time, or we have someone who's a victim of domestic violence and doesn't want to have their name in any system where they could be found. So these are people who can call us, get the information. We also have some immediate assistance that we can provide. And it's set up with 3 different tabs. One is for tenants, one is for landlords, and then the third is for homeowners. And the information is there for all. There's also by county a resource directory of all types of services that people may need that is there in English and Spanish. So you can take those and print them out for people or give them the link so that they can get access to other services. So we're very proud of that, very proud that we've been able to do that. So we also started something that is our mediation program. So housing counselors, HUD certified housing counselors, or those who have been doing housing counseling work for a long time and are going for their certification, we're able to go through a program that we started in April where they were trained as mediators or conciliators, and they can work to be the go-between between a tenant and a landlord, or a homeowner and their mortgage holder, and they can help negotiate a payment program or a settlement program so that they don't have to go to court. And the more people we can keep out of court, the better. So this is something that at this point we have 51 people who have been trained. Mike and Kyra went through the program with us. Mike had his staff there. And of course, they've got lots and lots and lots of experience. And they were able to bring different scenarios to the conversation, which was really very helpful as we went through. But we now have these people that can help. It's free. So there's no charge for these services. And we can also, when someone calls and needs that type of assistance, we also get them to a housing counselor that can help them. We make sure that they know what's available on the DCA website. We make sure that they have the access to the utility assistance information, possible connection to an attorney if there's something happening right away, and really able to do as much as possible to keep them out of court. That is our goal, is to keep them housed and protected and out of court. So I understand there's going to be a follow-up to this conversation today with a much more in-depth discussion and training on another day, and we're looking forward to providing that information. And just to also state that STEPS is involved with us in doing some of the outreach work and the mediation work. So we are working with them, and we look forward to working with them throughout this process. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Kyra.
You're welcome, Sharon. Thank you. But Sharon, I do want to say, and to everybody that's out there, all the employees that work for us, Half of them been certified. I think it's 6 or 7. And then we have another probably 6 more that has to be certified. But all of them are all NAACP members. So, so we're even though, people look at me because this is the work that we do normally during the day, but it's the same type of work we do for the NAACP at night or during the day. So I just want to make that clear to everybody out there. And I asked Sharon to come aboard to talk about it because so many of you have asked me about that. And I know that I told Sharon that we needed another class as soon as possible, but also I asked Sharon if it's possible that we could take this national, not just, we can no longer just keep things in-house to ourselves like this. It's very important, especially when you have nonprofits that have access to the money besides helping with the mediation. It doesn't get any better than that. So thank you, Sharon.
Thank you, Mike.
Our next panelist is Jose Ortiz, and he's the Deputy Director of Essex Newark Legal Services.
Legal Services.
Thank you for inviting me today. Essex Newark Legal Services provides free legal assistance to low-income families in Essex County in civil law matters. And I've been an attorney with Essex Newark Legal Services for over 25 years. And I just want to quote Frederick Douglass when he says, "Power concedes nothing without a demand." And I echo the words that were said earlier regarding Assemblywoman Timberlake. When she was seeking tenant relief, she was getting opposition every day. Every day there was a wall against her, and she kept demanding, we need to help tenants. We need to help low-income homeowners with this crisis. So on behalf of my clients, I thank you, Assemblywoman Timberlake, for the hard work that you did. DCA Director Winter, I've dealt with her for many years, and she is one of the few housing authorities providers who tells me, Jose, our mission is to prevent homelessness. We're not looking to take away subsidies. We're not looking to evict people. However, that's not the norm many times when I deal with federally subsidized landlords and housing authorities. Many times they have a mentality of a plantation. They're the masters, the tenants are the servants, and the tenants have to do whatever they say. So I sure hope that HUD and other government officials hold these people accountable, because the ones who suffer are low income and in many times Black and brown tenants. I'm in a battle right now in Newark where I'm representing tenants at Terrell Homes. Terrell Homes is in the Ironbound, located near the river, right next to a beautiful park. Across the river in Harrison is another public housing complex. They were both built by the same architect. They were both built about the same time. The city of Newark is looking to, and the housing authority is looking to demolish Terrell Homes. Why? Because for many years, there was no investment in maintaining Terrell Homes and many other housing complexes in the city. While on the other side of the river, you see a beautiful garden. You see workers every day taking care of that complex. And what's the difference? What I see, you have a white community in Harrison living in the public housing, and you got basically Black and brown people living in Terrell Homes. If you remove those tenants in Terrell Homes from the Ironbound section of Newark, the African-American population drops to almost zero. We cannot let that continue. We have to hold people accountable. We need to make sure that these thousands of dollars are being used to house needy families are used wisely. Why is it that a family in Camden living in a subsidized housing, senior citizen, disabled person, has to live in an unsecure building where there's high crime when thousands of dollars is being used, and why isn't that money not being used to provide security? Again, it goes to, and unfortunately, I see it also in the justice system, there's two different systems. And again, we can't allow that to continue. We need to hold people accountable. We need to make sure that the resources are done equally. Housing plays a very important role. It achieves opportunity, it achieves wealth, it achieves equality. But we also know that there's a direct line between housing and racism, and we need to break that. So working together, working in partnership, holding people accountable, I think we can achieve that. Essex Newark Legal Services is part of the Legal Services of New Jersey statewide system. All right. Janelle talked about filing those certifications. Well, as of Monday, the information that we received, only about 5,000 tenants have filled out that certification because people are having problems navigating the internet and maybe filling out those forms. So just like Janelle says that DCA is there to help tenants, all right, Legal Services is also there to help them to make sure with other partners, to make sure that those certifications are filled out and filled out correctly, because landlords do have the ability to contest that information in landlord-tenant court. So again, Legal Services, if you need free legal assistance, reach out to Legal Service of New Jersey. I'll put up our hotline number where we can try to help you. And together, working in partnership, we can make this a stronger and fairer country in New Jersey. Thank you.
Jose, I want to thank you. And I want everybody to know that, you know, every time I go up to Newark or been up to Terrell Holmes or whatever, he's been there with me or I've been there with him. Him and Bill Good are, you know, two wonderful people that everybody needs to meet up in Newark because they do a hell of a job up there. And Jose, I really appreciate you. I mean, you don't know how much, but you made my life easier in your involvement.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you for your kind words.
Okay. All these questions that Lori submit, you know, we may not get all the answers today, but at least it gives everybody a chance to think about it as we're going to go into, you know, the third phase of this. And the third phase, we guarantee you that you'll have all the time in the world you need to, you know, talk about whatever it is. Lori.
Thank you. Good afternoon. We're going to make this quick and dirty. For those that know me, they know I'm an attorney. They know I'm also a trial attorney, so I'm going to be real direct because you guys have talked enough and we need to get these answers out. First question, somebody wants to know what is the lottery system and why is there a lottery?
So I think that's for me. And the reason that we have a lottery is for two reasons. One is we anticipate that before we're done, we may have more applications than we can fill. So we need to select people. But the second and the most important is we want to make sure that we are getting to people who are the most in need. Those who might not be the people who can complete an application the night it's out. People who are extremely low income. So we have a preference in the lottery that allows us to pick first those people who are under 50% of AMI and those people who've been the longest unemployed and those people who have an eviction filing. And so that allows us to make sure the assistance gets to them first. However, when we say we pull a lottery every day. We pull around 2,000 people every day of the week and send them, you know, what we need to get them approved and ready for assistance. So there's a large number of people going through, so what we have really is called a rolling lottery. And it's really been where we got the idea was actually from the National Low Income Housing Coalition as a best practice for equitably distributing these funds. So that's the reason why we do it.
Thank you.
Thank you. 1 in 5 renters households are at risk of displacement due to the pandemic. How can we get the process of getting the funds into all these tenants less strenuous, along with the landlords? That is coupled with the fact that we believe there's $46 billion in housing support, and that people are trying to determine why that's taking so long to be fully dispersed. And the final part of that, if you're a person that takes time to get stuff on the internet, and the internet is shutting down and it's time sensitive, how do we help those people? I believe that's for the HUD folk.
Well, I can start overall and then maybe pass it to Janelle to talk about New Jersey specifically, right? So So we have, we have seen challenges with getting funding to the people who need it the most across the country. This $46 billion was run through the Treasury Department, and they got the dollars out into grantees pretty quickly. But you have to remember that a lot of states and communities were standing up new programs, brand new programs from scratch, and also facing the pandemic themselves. So they were either short-staffed or working from home. And so standing up a new program is always hard, but it was particularly hard during the pandemic. But now the money is rolling out. And I think in the best practices that Janelle has talked about, the state implementing are ways to show that New Jersey's been doing a great job of getting resources out compared to maybe some of your neighboring states that have been a little bit slow. So I will pass it to Janelle to talk about the specifics of how New Jersey is helping people who might have internet access issues.
Sure. So, and thanks, Peggy. And one of the things that we've done in New Jersey is, as I mentioned before, we're taking self-certification for what you need to do to qualify for this. So you can just sign a form that says, this is my income, this is my COVID impact. I'm in danger, like I need help paying my housing, and you don't have to upload a lot of additional documents. So that's really helpful. And I think that's helped allow us to be one of the top states in the country in getting these funds out. And for people who don't have internet access or don't have good internet access, they can apply and do the process online. And not online, through our call center. So our call center number is 609-490-4550. And that's staffed 7 days a week, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. You can both apply for assistance and do your eviction protection self-certification right there. And it's staffed in English and Spanish, and we have access to translation for other languages as well. So people who are not, don't have a great internet access, you should call there. Also, if you just have questions about it or questions on your internet, on your online application, you can call there too, and they can answer your questions. They can also take the application right over the phone.
Thank you. And I think we can get at least one other question, and this comes from actually our chairman of housing. It's in regards to he mentioned it already, in regards to the housing authorities and those that are have programs from home ownership, including the program of family self-sufficiency. And how do we get those housing authorities that don't have that program? How do we get those people that live under those to be able to take advantage of the programs for home ownership?
So first, it would be going to your housing authority and asking them to start these programs and showing them the benefits that neighboring housing authorities have achieved with them. The second piece, though, is as a central part of the Build Back Better agenda that's moving through Congress right now, is increasing the resources that housing authorities have to do services and supports. That the secretary has asked us to look at whether it's the Family Self-Sufficiency Program, Jobs Plus, Ross, looking at how do we, as we increase assistance for people to have rental assistance, we also need to scale up these services and support programs, but also make them easier for families so that they don't have to jump through hoops to try to save money, access job skills training, all of the services that come with that. In the home ownership space, we really have to re-look at how we're doing how the voucher program works in order to move families to home ownership. What we found is it's really difficult for housing authorities to implement that program. And so the secretary has asked us to look at that, evaluate it, and see what changes we can make to make it easier for families and for the housing authorities to operate that program. So if you have suggestions on how to do that, we would greatly appreciate it.
Okay, Peggy, thank you for that. And we would definitely, the NAACP housing team would definitely like to be part of that. So I want to take this time to thank everybody, all our panelists and all the guests that were out there that came for this. We will meet again it'll be the third one, and that'll be the one that will tell the story. And if you can give our regards to Secretary Fudge, that we are very interested in getting involved in doing this. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you so much, Chairman McNeil. Thank you so much to this esteemed panel. Thank you for taking time out on a Saturday. And now we have our marching orders. We know who to contact. And Mr. Mike McNeil, thank you so much as always.